Ay, tengo 7 ya en la sala de espera. Pero todavía no. ¿Será que ahí está ahí está Jefferson Steve? Ok. Tengo que caer el celular. ¿Estás bien? No, ya voy. Yo tengo que mirar la biodata de los sujetos. No, que cabrón, sí. Ya.
Right? So that's until break that number one. What's the first you and you to take those different perspectives? How are you get? How are you doing? Can you hear me well? Yes. And I can now I can see yes, I can see that you're predicting the presentation now. So thank you for this year. Thank you to all the other yes. You get everything saying this as a bachelor education language. Doctor in education.
Good morning, everyone. How are you? Welcome back to our concurrent sessions. And today we're going to start with the presentation by Jefferson Steven Lopez Perdomo and Juan Esteban Quintero Fernández and Ana Catalina Saavedra from Universidad Nacional de Colombia. It's a pleasure to have you here, guys. Then I am going to read some information about the biodata and to introduce the presentation. Okay, then give me a second, and then I'm going to read. I'm going to tell you about. So Jefferson Lopez is a 6th-semester bachelor degree student of English and Philology at Universidad Nacional de Colombia, and during his childhood, he saw reading and writing as a sacred activity, even having a kind of phobia for this. But when he finally entered this world, he could never stop. Immersed in books and YouTube communicators, he discovered knowledge as a way of liberating oneself, and that is why he decided to be part of the research seedbed, six legs, inscribed to the research group profile and semillas, a sign language seedbed, yeah? And now his interests revolve around second language acquisition, critical theories on language, language and culture and psycholinguistics and technology. Then Juan Esteban Quintero is a student of a 6th semester of the program of philology, English and philology at the Universidad Nacional as well, and he is affiliated to the research group profile, yeah, and his relationship with language teaching is strongly related to analysis of social aspects and wishes to help the students become analytical and capable of recognizing their political roles as individuals and to make decisions according to His research interests revolve around sociolinguistics, language acquisition, regional linguistics, language politics, and education. And then Ana Catalina Saavedra, who's a 7 semesters graduate student, undergraduate student, sorry, from the same program, English and Philology at Universidad Nacional de Colombia, and she's part also of the research group CIPSLEX, and also ascribed as at profile. And she has explored areas like critical pedagogy, universal design for learning, and foreign language teaching and learning. And she's still looking for and consolidating her research interests. So now I'll give you like the room is yours, and then you can start with your presentation. I hope everybody's here. I'm trying to give access to everyone. I guess everyone is here. I have more. Okay. Yeah, there are some people in the waiting room, but they are here now. Okay. So Jefferson, and are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning.
Hello.
Can you hear me properly?
Yes, we can. I can. I don't know the others.
Okay, okay. So, where is yours?
Okay. Hey everybody watching us live, and of course, representatives of Unica. We will be presenting our research project. Just give me 1 second, so I can like start sharing my screen. Please let me know when you see it.
Yes, we can see your screen now.
Okay. So, good evening once again. Today we are going to present this research project that we have been working. It's titled The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of Working Call Center Jobs, Perspectives from English Philology Student Employees. The project and the presentation is going to be performed by our group, which is conformed by Jefferson Steven Lopez, Juan Esteban Quintero, and Ana Catalina Saavedra, with the advice of Professor Adriana Castañeda Londoño. We are currently affiliated to CIPSLEX Seedbed of Universidad Nacional de Colombia, which is also related to the group research profile. So let's start. In order to delve into the topic of research, into our topic of research, I want to read a little extract um, from a narrative that we constructed in the early stages of our research project, and it goes like this. My perception of English speakers turned considerably negative because of the fact of having to solve their issues in their language with little cooperation and constant mistreatment. Besides, the realization that this industry benefits not only misreading customers, but also companies that profit and take advantage of their oppressive geopolitical position to hire irrationally cheap hand labor has antagonized me against an intangible figure of American imperialism that I find so closely related to customers, also victims of this system. So this is an excerpt from a narrative that I personally wrote, as I told you, in the early stages of the research project. And it of course, it's a little harsh approach to the topic, but I think that it exemplifies perfectly well, the complexity of the whole situation of call centers, and like this initial like perception about the call center industry is what motivated us to perform this study. And then we go with the problem statement. So our interest in researching the experience of philology students involved in call center arises from one of the researchers, in this case me, having worked as a call center agent for about a year. We recognize that call center jobs can shape our perspective about the use of language and the relationship with our professional identities, apart from our teacher roles, which is the common goal or the common aim that we have in the degree. So therefore, we wanted to explore the relationship between call center jobs, our teacher identity, and the dropout rates in our career. And lastly, what motivated us the most was how common this topic is in our department and the lack of exploration of this topic in the Department of Foreign Languages in Universidad Nacional. This takes us to the research question, which is how does participation in the call center environment shape learning investment and identity construction of philology students? Our research objectives are divided in the general, which is to problematize the phenomenon of call center studying employees from a language investment perspective in relation to professional identity. And the specific objectives are to characterize the reasons to take a call center jobs, meaning the motivations that starting employees find in order to start working as call center agents. Then we have to describe the learning opportunities afforded by the call center jobs, which are undeniable and are quite not few. And lastly, we have to analyze the main challenges encountered by starting employees when negotiating their identities as employees and language learners or future bachelors in philology. Now, I want to introduce you to Jefferson, who is in charge of explaining the theoretical framework. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Steven. Now that Steven has shown the problem statement, let me talk about the theoretical framework. So the first concept we analyze is language investment in call centers. But what is language investment? Well, Darwin and Norton describes this as a sociological construct that focuses on how language learning is configured by social practices, lived experiences, and histories. Thus, language learning is not just seen as an act of agency, but as a complex decision in which, as you can see in the graph, identity, capital, and ideology interact with each other. But let's expand on these concepts in the call center. First, identity. For Norton, it means how people understand their relationship to the world, how that relationship is constructed across time and space, and how people understand their possibilities for the future. In call centers, identity is shaped by a hierarchical way of positioning, that is to say, that our relationship with the world and with oneself depends on the post being occupied. The higher, the better. Second, capital. For Purdue, capital represents a form of power that goes beyond just economic capital, encompassing both cultural and social capital. Cultural capital appears in the form of skills and qualifications, while social capital encompasses useful networks in terms of power. But let's retake the concepts in the call of call centers. These offer economic capital by providing income, cultural capital by offering knowledge as contact with the language and its culture, and social capital by having connections to networks of power and the possibility of getting a better rank. And finally, ideology. That, based on Althusser, represents the imaginary relationship of individuals to the real conditions of existence. Therefore, we must argue that there is a close manifestation of ideology through reality. In the call center context, we can only establish just a set of ideologies, but however, there is a pervasive ideology in which English is taken as lingua franca that produces an entrepreneurial self. This entrepreneurial self leads to the idea that we sell and manage ourselves as enterprises, and that our performance is not a simple labor, but a personal achievement. Now we can move to affordances in call center that, according to Rama et al., are the opportunities for learning or interaction provided by a context about the abilities of the learner, normally in a community of practice. And in the call center context, Woody and Lookwood highlight that these offer distinct affordances like settings to increase communicative competence thanks to interaction with colleagues and customers, acquisition of workplace-related speech, and enhancement of proficiency via scripts. The next concept is professional identity. We say that professional identity is a complex and dynamic construct related to how each person perceives and expresses themselves concerning their work. Moreover, as Watson states, we must eschew from the fixed traits or static definitions because this concept changes depending on dynamic environments. Nonetheless, it is very important to highlight the organizational control of the identity in such spaces, as Alvinson and Wilmot argue, in which there is a desire of the enterprises to control the insights of people and imposing a reality just to satisfy economic needs. And finally, the emergence of professional identity of undergraduate students, which possesses a crucial question for us, since these students are developing his future career in two settings at the same time. What Chavez Rojas et al. Tell us is that teachers' professional self-image in students is mainly shaped by personal and social experiences, institutional roles, shared practices, and individuals' interpretations. Moreover, Huang expands this by adding the pedagogical expertise and the internalization of the vocation. In our context, philology students every day develop a sense of belonging to their role as future teachers, since the course in which they are enrolled and the discourses they encounter really permeate their teacher persona. Now, we would also like to highlight the findings of three key research papers dealing with the call center phenomenon. The first one was carried out by Winnicki in 2007 and examined the technological and managerial techniques used for call centers in UK to understand the process of subjectification. In this paper, the most important finding was that these call centers wish to conduct business in a manner that is as economical, calculable, predictable, and controllable as possible, this including people. The second one was carried out by Del Bono and Bellini in 2008, in which they analyzed the experiences and perspective of two groups in Argentina. And in this research, they conclude that first, the perception about the quality of the job was linked to their socioeconomic need, previous working experiences, and their professional perspective. And second, that the majority rejects a long-term projection. And the last research was carried out by Buseva, Sinha, and Gabriel in 2014. And here they analyzed different perspectives within an Indian offshore call center, in which they analyzed corporate Englishization, that was English taken as lingua franca with better varieties, and the rejection of the West community, relegating the Indian offshores up into a process of mimicry.
Okay, thank you very much, Jefferson. So next we will move to the research methodology. We will start by stating that the paradigm of research is qualitative with an inductive construction. The research design is descriptive and analytic. It was applied in the context of the students of foreign languages department in Universidad Nacional de Colombia. The participants of this study were 25 students of the department who have had experience in the call center environment. The instrument that we used in order to link these participants into to the study was a piloted expert reviewed survey, which we applied over those 25 students. For our data analysis, we were based in grounded theory, which tells us that the categories of analysis will start to emerge from data itself and not from a previous hypothesis.
All right. Now that our partner Esteban has talked about the methodology, we are going to continue with data analysis and interpretation. So as he was saying, because we are working with grounded theory that comes from a sociological view of research, in which we do not have preconceptions and then confirm them via research, but the opposite. So we let the data speak to us in the research. These following categories of analysis emerge from the data. So these are the three categories. The first one is experience working in a call center. The second one, perceived access to resources. And the third one, salaries in the call center. So for the first one, experience working in a call center, here we have a graph that is showing what the answers were for this question about what their experience was like. And here we see that the experience for most of them was somewhat positive, and it was positive for most. And the reasons why are well, firstly, study and time constraints. There's also the workplace environment, financial aspects, emotional burden, positive aspects on language skills development, and satisfaction. So in terms of study and time constraints, we know that students are not only students, but they are also workers. So in terms of the time that they had for their academic responsibilities, it was limited. Then we have the workplace environment, which we will further discuss in the next slide, which is related to how they felt in the workplace and what it provided for them. Then we have the financial aspects, which is very important. The emotional burden, which we will also discuss in the next slide. Positive aspects on language skills development, which we will also discuss, and satisfaction, that is related to, it's a very important part of our project because it's related to why some of them decided not to continue working on a call center, but rather strengthened their professional identity as teachers of English. So in this part, we have that, firstly, we have that initial advantages are overshadowed by the demanding nature of the work. So when they started working at a call center, it might have been seen as something attractive because of the good salary, but then the demanding nature of the work was a heavier reason. Then we have mixed answers on the workplace environment. So on one hand, some people said that the space, the physical infrastructure of call center buildings and workplace environments is really good, and the schedule is flexible enough to allow them to keep on studying. But then on the other hand, some other student workers said that the environment is rather unpleasant in terms of the lack of possibilities to escalate and the harmful relationships that there are between the clients and the call center agents. Then we have the financial compensation versus the pigeonhole career prospects, which is linked to the previous reason. So they might have gotten a good wage, but then again, they couldn't really escalate in this environment. The next one is the emotional burden. As we have discussed, schedules for student workers are quite heavy. And there's also the contact with clients that represents an emotional burden for them. And the mistreatment that they get on a daily basis can end up having a toll on their mental health. And lastly, we have positive aspects on language skills development. So in this part, perceived access to resources, here we have another graph. So most of them, 15 students, said that they did perceive that they had access to resources while working at a call center, and 10 of them said that they didn't. So for this first part, those who said that they did have access to resources, they said, well, we divided them into 3 categories. The first one is language development. In terms of their communicative competence, they highlighted that in terms of speaking, they had access to native speakers, so interaction with native speakers, improving their fluency, and widening their vocabulary. In terms of listening, they had access to authentic input and active listening. And in terms of writing, when their specific tasks at work required them to write. Then we have soft skills development, specifically the acquisition of knowledge on tools, because working at a call center requires developing some technological skills in order to handle correctly the operational systems that they have, and then giving and receiving feedback, both from peers and from superiors. And lastly, we have cognitive skills development. Specifically, one student worker answered that they had to develop a skill of multitasking because of the limited time and the pressure. And lastly, we have salaries. In this part, here we have these two graphs. The first one is from students who have already left their call center work, and the second one is from students who are still working at a call center. So based on these two graphs that we have here, we can conclude that most students earn between 2 and 4 million pesos. So in here, and related to our theoretical framework that our partner Jefferson has just talked about, there is a relationship between the global north, the global south, and cheap hand labor that these companies from the global north can find here. So in that context, we wanted to compare the salaries that there are on the US and the salaries that we have here in Colombia. So given that the context and the conditions here in the country are probably different, working at a call center represents a great opportunity for young university students who are looking for a job that pays well enough and that allows them to keep on studying. In those terms, salaries are exceptionally high. But when we compare them to salaries for US call center agents, Colombian call center agents earn significantly less. So here we see that a call center agent on the US earns from $714 to $952. And compared to call center agents here in Colombia, they earn from $476 to $714. So it's important to make this comparison to see that the geopolitical relationship between what we do here as Colombian call center agents and what they work on over there is different.
Hello, I'm sorry. I was
Okay,
talking well muted.
Okay.
So, and now we are going to be discussing, well, about the outcomes of working as call center agents. We divided them into the 3 different categories based on data. And we have them like this. So we have the good, which is what agents earn from working in call center jobs. We have the bad, which is what directly affects agents. And we have the ugly, which are all those aspects that have to be tolerated because they cannot be changed, but they don't, I mean, they are harmful, but they do not affect directly the student employees. So for the good, we organize them based on the data analysis and the perceived benefits from these agents. And we will start by the economic capital. So it provides an improved acquisition capacity for students based on the salary and what my partner Catalina was saying about the wages being like really high for the position in the country. Then we have networking and professional growth, and language skills improvement, where we can find the communication, writing, listening, and speaking abilities. And lastly, like the main good aspect that we want to highlight is the role that working as call center agents has in the sense of returning to a prospective teacher identity. Basically, because of what we discussed in the data analysis of the overshadowed advantages of working as call center agents, the demanding nature of the job, and the levels of, I mean, the relationship between the satisfaction, personal satisfaction, and call center jobs. We found that it has a prospective identity teacher role, which makes them return to what the degree offers as a professional outcome. That's it. Okay, for the bad, we have commodification of language, which was also mentioned, and what we relate as the way in which call center agents have to handle their accents and their register in order to like fit into a specific I don't know how to call that. Yes, like well, they have to fit into a shape of language and language use. And then we have emotional exhaustion, which includes all the mentioned about students having to handle pressure, stressful situations, and besides negative emotional responses from customers directly. And in terms of the ugly, we have the fact of being victims of labor arbitrage, which basically means that, well, we are part of an industry that exploits language and makes student employees part of a productive way of serving like this imperialist figure, and that makes them I don't know, like sell their abilities in order to satisfy customers. And that's it. Thank you very much. These are our references. And of course, we are absolutely open to receiving feedback and receiving any further questions that you may have.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank you
Juan
very
Esteban.
much.
That was very interesting. And I would like to ask you a question. We have some time constraints, but even though there is just a question I have. What ethical or methodological challenges did you face while collecting the testimonies of your peers? Now, given that they were given like this personal information, and as you say, as you mentioned, there were some kind of precarious work experience.
Yes. I think I will take the lead to answer the question. I think that as this topic is really common in the department, I think that it was not hard to find people who wanted to actively share their experiences, basically as a way in which they could like kind of drop all these negative experiences that they have had in call center jobs. So well, they were more than happy to like have a space
Okay.
where to ventilate those experiences.
Oh, great. So thank you very much. That was very interesting and a very, trendy topic. Ana Catalina, do you want to say something?
Yes, in terms of ethics, which you mentioned as well, the surveys were anonymous, and
Okay.
we asked for very little personal information.
Okay.
And
Thank
regarding the
you.
salaries, very, very like ethical.
Okay. Okay. And so thank you very much. That was very interesting because, we see many students, language students working in call centers. So your research gives us some information, valuable information about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you
Bye.
for
Bye.
letting us present.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you. It was
much. It
very
was a
interesting.
very
Bye,
fun
Jefferson.
opportunity.
Okay, now we are going to continue with the following presentation, which is called Implementing Authentic Evaluation to Develop Communicative Competencies by Professor Juan Pablo Morales Crispin, and he was born in Tlaxcala, Mexico. And Juan Pablo has been an English teacher since 2009 and mainly in private schools. He has majored in education and another in medicine. Oh, that's interesting. And he finished his master's degree in education at CAM Iguala in 2023. He's currently studying a major in math. He's an animal lover and he likes animals, he likes language, and he speaks French and studies German and Japanese. So Professor Juan Pablo, welcome. And now you have your presentation, please.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Is the audio okay? Can you hear me
Yes.
well?
Yes.
Okay, well, so I'm going to share my presentation. Can you see it there?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Well, my name is Juan Pablo Morales Crespin, as you have heard, and I'm going to present, the title is Implementing Authentic Evaluation to Develop Communicative Competencies. Well, so I'm going to start there. Well, what I'm going to present is just a part of my thesis in master's degree that I got in October 2023. That it was called Implementing Authentic Evaluation to Develop Communicative Competencies in English for First-Year Students at Iguala. Iguala is where I work. It's Centro de Actualización del Magisterio de Iguala, which is a school to prepare future teachers. In our case, it's secondary education. We have elementary and kindergarten. In my case, it's secondary. And, and the school is located in Guerrero. You must know this state in Mexico, in the south of Mexico. Probably the most known city is Acapulco. We are not very close from Acapulco. We're actually in the north part of Guerrero, close to Mexico City. Well, the methodology I use to do this research is action research, which is a method used for improving practice. It involves action, evaluation, and critical reflection, and based on the evidence gathered, changes in practice, which are then implemented. It's a situation-based and context-specific. The knowledge is created through action and at the point of application, and action research can involve problem solving if the solution to the problem leads to the improvement of practice. So this is a very specific methodology. I don't know if you knew this. When I started my master's degree, I didn't know anything about it, to be honest. But I really like it because, as it says here, it's very context specific. It changes your practice. For all the teachers that are already practicing, this can actually work for you because you do the research and then you implement it in your own practice. The most known authors of this methodology are Elliott, Latorre, and Cauchy, the newest one. And well, it follows like a spiral image. No, you do the plan, you start planning, you act and observe according to your plan, and then you reflect on the outcome. And then you do it again, you revise the plan, and then act and observe and reflect. And it's a never-ending story. Yeah, the action research, because we can always implement something to our practice. Okay, so what was my problem? I discovered 3 problems in my practice. The most important is assessing linguistic competencies without using a written test, getting students' interest in the language, and using English outside the classroom. Well, this is a chart of causes and consequences. So the lack of knowledge of other assessment techniques led to implementation of the written exam as the only evaluation instrument. The use of the exam as the only assessment tool led to many students failing the course, and the degree of learning obtained by students is not reflected. because of missing the exam on the day, nervousness, etc. And many students failing the course, well, we have school dropout, which we can no longer have, at least here in Mexico. The SEP, the Minister of Education says that we cannot have students dropping out of school. So, well, this led to my research question: how can I generate greater interest in students from different undergraduate programs to facilitate English language learning so they can use it in their daily lives, both at school and at work, without using a written exam as an assessment? You must know, well, I don't know, but many teachers, at least here in Mexico, still have this, no? A final test, very similar to TOEFL, to TOEIC, to international standardized test, Cambridge. Yes, and we have the row of students doing the exam, and then the teacher, you know, surveying that they are not cheating. So I wanted to change this. Well, the diagnosis is the problem with focusing exclusively on a written exam or test is that it can leave aside the development of certain important skills when it comes to language competence, such as speaking. Now, many times we focus so much on written tests that we forget other skills. Additionally, it's a rigid instrument that does not allow the learning process to be reviewed throughout the semester and focuses on final results. No, this again, this cannot be. We need formative assessment, not only final results. This impacts students negatively because they depend on a single final test, overlooking formative assessment, which is why they tend to have low grades and high failing rates. Well, according to Snesa Markovic, the Director General for Democracy of the Council of Europe, the Common European Framework of Reference was never intended to justify a controlling role for assessment instruments. You must know this chart. No, all language students know that we have categories A, B, and C, and then 1 and 2 to measure, no, the amount of language we manage. Oh, sorry. However, they say that it was not a controlling tool. However, we now use, no, what level? I'm B1. Oh, you're intermediate. Oh, I'm C1. Oh, that's better. No, so we tend to classify students and future workers with this chart. Again, according to the Common European Framework of Reference, we have in the communicative language skills, we have three competencies, which is linguistics, that has lexics, grammar, phonology, writing, the sociolinguistic competence, and the pragmatic competence that includes flexibility, terms when speaking, coherence and cohesion, precision, fluency, etc. So we cannot only focus on a written test when we have this chart that says that we have different types of competencies. So tests, according to Freeman, are an evaluative device or procedure in which a test taker's performance in a specific domain is measured. That is a test. However, assessment, on the other hand, is a broader term that integrates tests with information from other sources. This perspective broadens the picture from providing only numerical information, and it shapes people's understanding of what is important for them to learn, what learning is, and who the learners are. So, assessing is it's a broader term that includes many things, including the test. So my hypothesis was by implementing authentic assessment of language skills, I will improve the ability of students to develop communicative skills in English. So, well, the study was done in Kamiwala, which is a school for future teachers in secondary education. I had two groups of 20 students, math and chemistry, out of a total of 200 students, so it was 10% of the school. The research paradigm was qualitative action research, as I mentioned in the first slide. I use, rubrics, observation, and student journals, and we had a spiral method of 2 cycles. You know that the picture I also show, we have 2 cycles of this spiral. In the first cycle, um, the action plan consisted of implementing 2 communicative activities in real situations and an authentic assessment proposal. So for the first activity, students had to write a card with the following information and then record a video in which they made a presentation using this information. So I remember this is for a first course. So they started with this basic information, the name, the last name, phone number, and email address. And they had to write this card and then present it in class or in a video. Well, what did I use to make the rubric? Well, I used the HESE, which is the graded examination in spoken English by Trinity College London, which is a leading independent educational charity that has been providing examinations since 1877, specializing in examination of communication and performance skills. So it's a speaking test in the areas of music, drama, and the English language. It aims to inspire teachers and students by creating examinations that are enjoyable to prepare for, rewarding for teachers, and in which students develop life skills. So it's real information, the most important real information. This test is structured into 12 graded papers called G1 to G12, and the justification for choosing this instrument is that it has realistic objectives in listening and speaking practice with native speakers. It can be done digitally or face to face. So on your right side, you have the G1, Trinity College London, exam information, grade examinations in spoken English. So this is what the test, the spoken test by Trinity will grade you in the first step, G1. And then I took those yellow marks that you see, and I translated them into a rubric. Yes, we have, as you can see on the left, language, grammar, lexis, phonology, and writing. I put writing because you know that, remember that it's a card that you have to write. And I divided into 3 categories: excellent, good, and needs work. And I evaluated the students, and they did also a self-assessment. So they evaluated themselves. In the second activity for the first cycle, I created this memory game on EducaPlay, and it has some questions that we checked in class, and well, pictures to check it, to match. Again, it's the same G1, but now this exercise works with the green part. Yes, so now we can see that we fully finished the G1. Yeah, and then we have the same rubric: language, grammar, lexis, phonology, and in this case, I have some time because in the exam you have to talk for 5 minutes. So we have 5, 3, and 1 minute. In this case, the activity was in pairs. They had to record a video in pairs for 5 minutes, taking turns answering the questions. Okay, what were the effects of the first cycle? Well, implementation of projects. Yeah, so I substituted the traditional exam for these 2 projects, telling the students how they are going to be evaluated through the rubric. Yes, I show them the rubric before what they had to do. And I exercise self-evaluation in the first activity and co-evaluation in the second. The students had to evaluate each other. Sorry, that's my printer. I'm going to. Okay, sorry. What was the change or the effect of the first cycle? Communicative activities, the implementation of communicative activities, real life situations, and authentic evaluation. No, that Diaz-Barriga says that it's considered an alternative in the sense of a change in the assessment culture, focus on static paper and pencil instruments that explore only the sphere of declarative knowledge. In line with constructivism, an authentic performance-centered assessment seeks to evaluate what is done. identifying the link between the conceptual and the procedural, understanding how performance occurs in a given context and situation. Okay, what are the evidences of the of this first cycle? Well, as you can see, this is a classroom page. Yes, I have the instructions. They're in Spanish because remember this is a first grade. Okay, this is the link to the game, and then I have the rubric. For example, this is an example of a rubric filled by a student, no? An evaluation rubric filled out by a student evaluating her partner's performance. That is co-evaluation. So check how they colored, no, the points. And the most important here is the observation. It says the student had some errors, sorry, in the pronunciation, and it's recommended to practice the lexis. So these future teachers are already exercising or doing co-evaluation in their first year. What were the changes in my practice? Well, shift from grading to assessing. That now we know that it's very different, grading to assessing. The diversification of assessment instruments and categorizing students to propose activities according to performance levels. Yes, so according to the levels they got in language, grammar, and lexis, I propose different um, types of work so that they can better those areas, specific areas that they were missing. For the second cycle, I have we practice with a reflective journal in 4 activities. The first one was a homework with present continuous. The second was a project. The students had to write 20 sentences about what an educational actor does according to the information collected during the week of observation of secondary schools. So they had to write a routine of a teacher, the principal, or a student. And then with that information, they had to film a video saying no, the routine of this actor. And then the last one is a project called Dream House. The students will have to present the dream house to their group, describing the rooms and the objects found there. Well, the choice of the reflective journal as a tool for evaluation is because Cordova says the objective is to know what, how much, in what way, and how the teaching learning process is being carried out to enrich it constantly. Its purpose is to build knowledge through reflective practice, which places the student at the center of the learning process and develops critical thinking and metacognition. So in general, I had 10 questions per task. There were 4 tasks, but in general, the questions were, what did I learn and what did I take from the task I completed? What steps did I follow to complete the task? How can I apply what I learned in my daily life? Do I still have questions about the topic? And what could the teacher do to make it easier for me to learn the topics? So I'm going to show the evidences of the different journals. Below that are in Spanish, and I have the translation here. So what steps did I follow to complete the task? It says, first of all, I consider my notes from the class and the instructions to do the homework. However, if I've had a doubt, I checked the internet and asked a classmate to remind me if I had forgotten something and take it into account to submit a well-done homework. So what we can see is here that students are cooperating. Yeah, if they have questions, they ask each other. Another piece of evidence, well, how can I apply what I learned in my daily life? It says, I'm recently starting to read in English, so I need to remember the grammar rules, and many platforms are only in English, so I have to know how to communicate little by little. So what we can see here is that this student is already reading and consulting pages in English. This is very good because here, well, the city is not doesn't have many touristic places. We don't have many tourists. They all go to Acapulco, and we don't have people to practice with. I mean, tourists or even people from here. The level of English is low, so we don't have too many people to practice with. So, do you think this type of project will help you develop your skills to become a better teacher? This is talking about the dream house where they have to present their dream house. And well, this student responded, yes, I do. I think they're very useful so as not to be afraid when you're teaching a class. So, because, well, obviously for these students, imagine they are 18, 19 years old, and standing in front of a whole class could be a little tough, no, for the first time. So with these projects, they are saying that it's very useful to do self-evaluations to improve what we're doing wrong. So co-evaluation really works because not only is the teacher's perception, is their own uh, classmates, and it helps build confidence. What were the changes in this second cycle? Well, the implementation of projects and assessing tools allow students the opportunity to provide feedback to the teacher. Yes, because I remember that there was a question about the teacher. So I asked, what can I do to improve this topic, to better, what other techniques do you know? How can I facilitate the learning? And taking into consideration students' interest through the journal, they show me that they are reading books, or what kind of books they are reading, what kind of music they like, so I can implement that into my daily practice. So in the conclusion, well, what I did is the diversification of assessment instruments, assessment of language skills without using exclusively a written test, and the implementation of formative assessment. No, because obviously, as you can see, the journal, it was written weekly. So it's not at the end that I find out all the problems that they had in the semester, but periodically. And well, those are my references. And well, thank you very much for your attention. That's my email address in case you want the whole thesis. And my phone number, remember I'm from Mexico, so you have to dial +52, and that's my phone number. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Professor. That was very interesting. Now, you have any questions, please? Or you can write them down in the chat or open your microphones. So I see there is no question. So then I have one question, Professor,
Yes.
because I'm very interested in the topic of metacognition.
Okay.
So can you tell us what insights did you gain from the reflective journals about a students' metacognitive development and their perceptions of language using the language beyond academic contexts? Can you develop a little bit on that about metacognitive processes?
Yes, I was really surprised by
Mm-hmm,
this student that said that she's already reading in English because, well, they are first year students and they don't have
mm-hmm.
to. There are no readings, let's say in the
Okay.
book.
Mm-hmm,
So I was really shocked because she's already reading in English.
mm-hmm,
But also in my context, a lot of the students have relatives in the United States.
mm-hmm.
So although they
Ah,
communicate
okay.
in Spanish,
Yeah.
some of them start using what we see in class to communicate with their relatives in the United States. So that's
Uh-huh.
really also important because they are using the language outside the classroom. So not only
Okay.
for teaching, but for communicating with relatives or reading or checking
Okay.
web pages in English.
Okay. Okay. And to what extent these the self-assessment and the peer assessment improve students' autonomy and and accuracy? When you evaluate the language.
Yeah, it really helps because as I mentioned, it's not
Yeah.
only the teacher's perspective, they
Yeah.
also see what they are missing because they say, oh, my language is not so good. I'm going to put an 8. And although it's
Okay.
difficult for students sometimes to put a
Uh-huh.
low grade or a lower grade than they think,
So,
they start working on that. They see for themselves that they really need to work, so they start working. So it really helps.
oh, wonderful, wonderful. And do you think like the institution should continue with those projects like the ones that you have proposed? I guess that might be a good idea.
Yes, of course. Unfortunately, let's say remember that action research is personal. So,
Okay.
of course, I'm going to start doing it and implementing this. I've been working through this with for 2 years, so I'm going to continue doing it. But this is a personal effort, let's say. So
Okay.
each teacher, that's why this is very important to communicate that each teacher has to do it and to
Okay.
convince. Because maybe, well, I'm kind of young. I'm 34 years old, so I'm a
Okay.
young teacher, I say. But older teachers think that they know everything, no? So they
Okay.
have this mindset that they already have this figured out. But if
Okay.
they start reading these authors, they're going to discover that maybe something is missing about assessment, about self-evaluation. They are not incorporating something, and they can start working that so that they can better themselves.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor. That was very interesting. And I hope you have enjoyed the present.
Of
Thank you
course.
very
Thank
much.
you very much for
Okay,
having me.
okay, okay. Now we're going to continue with our next presentation, which is called A Critical and Intercultural Pedagogical Experience Through Carnival by Luisa Fernanda Angarita Rodríguez, Gina Marcela Castillo Silva, Laura Valentina Ruiz Caraballo y Santiago Estupiñán Torres. They come from la Fundación Universitaria Monserrate. So Santiago is from Bogota, okay, and he's in his final semester of a bachelor degree in bilingual education at Fundación Universitaria Monserrate and specializing in social sciences. Eh, and in addition to his studies, he works as an English teacher in the same university and offers personalized English instruction. And his personal interests includes learning new languages such as Portuguese and Italian, and he is also engaged with social issues such as inequality, discrimination, and the history and movements of Afro-descendant communities. Welcome, Santiago. Then I have Laura Valentina Ruiz Caraballo, who's 20 years old, and she has lived in Bogota her entire life. So this has shaped her multicultural perspective on the world, and those viewpoints led her to study or pursue the bachelor's degree in bilingual education, and with emphasis on natural sciences. And currently, in her 9 semesters, she has gained teaching experience in various contexts, including English academics, formal schools, and non-formal education. Her academic interests encompass the implementation of clear methodologies for teaching science, the role of culture in shaping language, and the use of arts as a social tool for intercultural development, and the mental consequences in old age of hormone-induced body changes. Okay. Then Luisa Fernanda Garita Rodriguez, also pursuing the bachelor degree in education with an emphasis in social studies and also Fundación Universidad Monserrate, and she was born in Bogota. She's 20 years old and passionate about intercultural awareness, arts, social justice, and fashion as a means of expression. She integrates these interests into her teaching approach, and her work focuses on fostering justice, respect, and using language as a tool for reconciliation. And she has a strong academic foundation and deep dedication to education, and she strives to positively impact both students and the broader community. And Gina Marcela Castillo Silva is 22 years old, and she's also in 9th semester of her bachelor degree and in education, bilingual education with an emphasis in natural sciences. And she has always been fascinated by the world and its diverse elements, seeking to explore human nature in various social contexts. Her research interests center on educational integrity, intercultural communication, and interaction, as well as emerging pedagogies. So, through her academic work, she aims to contribute to the advancement and of inclusive and dynamic education. So, welcome, guys, and now you can continue with your presentation.
Hi, good morning. Okay, just give me a second because I have to present, but it is not working, but give me just a second.
Okay, so so you can share your screen. We are Santiago.
Thank you.
Listo.
Okay, hello everyone. Today we are going to present our research project that is called Sigla, an intercultural pedagogical experience through Carnival. This is presented by me, Luis Angarita, Gina Castillo, Santiago Estupiñán, Laura Ruiz, and our institution are Unimonserrate o Fundación Universitaria Monserrate. Okay, algorithm language and culture are inseparable, and there are present cultural barriers. The proposal of Carnival Sigla in the Fundación Otero Líbano, now from on, fold as an innovate with arts strategies that promotes critical intercultural communication competences among students of EFL learners, now from EFL.
Hi, I'm Laura. So when we think of English or the process of language teaching, we don't always think of colors, dancing, or even customs. But this is what Sigla is promoting and it's proposing in this moment, like to use carnival elements to teach in English or a second language with the integration of culture. We live in a globalized world, and all countries are trying to adapt to it, including Colombia. So this world, these Colombian strategies have contributed, but not in a very good way, since they do not integrate very well the cultures of two languages. So we have one main concept that is bilingualism. So we don't have to think about just speaking two languages, but the interaction between two cultures from two different countries or whatever. Then we have also the critical intercultural communicative competencies. So critical intercultural communicative competencies allows us to communicate effectively, respectfully, and critically when we are having an intercultural interaction.
Okay, so based on the previous information, we have the next research question, which is, what does the Sigla Carnival reveal about EFL learners, CICC, that is Critical Intercultural Communicative Competences, development in a non-formal educational setting? And based on that, we have our specific objective, which is to describe what the Sigla Carnival reveals about EFL learners, critical intercultural communicative competences, development in a non-formal educational setting. And also we decided to create our specific objectives. We have four. So the first one is to observe how CICC are implemented in a non-formal educational setting. The second one, to reflect how interculturality could be promoted in EFL learners in a non-formal educational setting. The third one is to propose a carnival creation as a way to enhance the CICC with English language teaching. And the last one is to assess the Sigla Carnival as a pedagogical strategy to develop CICC.
For this research, we select or we choose for specific theories. So the first one is a combination between the critical interculturality and the and the intercultural communicative competences. The critical interculturality is based on Catherine Walsh, and the ICC are based on Byram. So, in that sense, we combine both in CICC. The second one is the carnival and the mask, according to the carnivalization theory by Mikhail Bakhtin. And the third one is the non-formal education, according to Alan Rogers. And the last one is material design by Petit Jean.
Okay, in order to review, we'll look those articles based on those authors. The principal topics that we searched was pedagogical, was a CICC, ABL, non-formal education, and PBL.
And thing to highlight here is that this review literature is divided like depending of the context that we have. So national, international, and those things.
Talking about our research methodology, as context, as Luisa already said, we have Fundación Otero Líbano, that is fall. This foundation specifically focuses on girls that have low socioeconomic context. So they are from 4 years old or 5 years old to 18 years old, and there are other groups, but mainly they focus on women. We choose group 2 and group 4 to work with them according to their ages. Our research paradigm is socio-critical, since we want to transform a situation that we problematized and identified in a community. Our research design is action research. The instruments we chose are interviews that were, sorry, with the teachers and with the girls. Our field notes, we have 4 field notes since we are 4 researchers, and the artifacts. Those artifacts are the ones that the girls developed during the sessions we planned. And the data analysis is based on foundations of grounded theory by Creswell, 2007. This is the action research model that we chose, that is made by Chemis and McTaggart in 1988. As you can see, it is a cycle in which first we observe, and according to our specific objectives, the first thing that we did was observing how CICC were implemented, or whether they were implemented or not in the context we chose. Then we reflect how these competencies could be developed through something, right? So we thought about the carnival elements to integrate the culture into the English learning process. So we evaluate the proposal, and then we planned how the process could be into the 6 sessions we planned with PBL and ABL. So PBL, project-based learning, and ABL, art-based learning. Then we go to ACT. This comes to the 6 sessions we had with the girls. After that implementation and collection of information, we observed again how the sessions went, and then reflect again and plan again and act. So this is the model we got.
So adding to that, in our pedagogical intervention, we decided to put 4 key points. The first one is the Cervantes Institute, and we base on the curricular plan. In this case, the sessions that we have to decide for the carnival were divided in 4, or those sessions try to keep in mind like 4 important things into this curricular plan. The first one is configuration of a plural cultural identity. The second one, assimilation of cultural knowledge, cultural interaction, and the last one, cultural mediation. So in our pedagogical design, we have this specifically per each session. Then after that, we have the PBL. So as Laura said before, PBL is project-based learning. In this case, the most important thing here is that the project is divided by sessions or by task. Okay, and connecting that, we have the ABL, which is art-based learning. In this case, the art-based learning is like the same as PBL, but the most important thing here is the arts. So in art-based learning, the idea is to connect the arts through the learning process and teaching process. And the last one point is CLIL. We decided to choose CLIL for the lesson plans. So all of the sessions that we create for this carnival were based on CLIL. And in this, it's important to highlight that the English is a tool, but not the end.
In this case, for the data analysis, according to grounded theory, according to some elements taken from grounded theory by Creswell, we start with the data collection. So in the first part, we have three specific instruments: the field notes, the interviews, and also the artifacts. So when we have all the information in those elements in those instruments, we start to transcribe them in a specific format with all the information that we recollect. Then we start to observe and analyze all the information to relate the information acquired in the field notes with the information acquired in all the elements, in all the instruments that we use in this project. When we have all these specific categories, we start to name it. For that, we choose three specific ones, three macro categories, and the first one is intercultural understanding and representation. Inside of this one, we have three micro categories. The first one is identity. The second one is learning through arts, and the third one is cultural awareness. Then in the second macro category, we have social engagement and affective development. In that we can in that we include feelings and building communities, and the last one is communication and expression. In that it is inside the EFL, or English as a foreign language, and the carnival.
Okay, according to those categories, we divide our findings in that. So in the first one, we found, like initially, we observed the necessity for implement and promote the cultural awareness in the girls, like in individual and collective aspects. So they recognize their cultures, and for this reason, they respect herself. After this, they recognize the differences of the another cultures with the partners, and they improve that respect for the another cultures and another difference with the realities like they live in this moment. For the cultural aspects, they improve the respect and the recognition for another like the same human value. In the social engagement and effective development, we look the importance of the feelings with the women. So the emotional part was to like a complement our space with a security aspect. For this reason, they recognize the development of the carnival like a
In the last part, we have communication and expression. So in this part, we could observe that at the beginning, students were a little reluctant to the aspect of speaking in English. However, after some time, students started to feel more closer with the language, and they try to use it and even ask some questions to try to communicate with their partners. So it changed not just in the way that they connect with others or the way that they relate with their partners, but also it changed in the way in which they see English. So they started to use it as a way to communicate, and also with the carnival, the gear school used their their ideas and represented their ideas through the different artifacts that they do during the process.
Okay. For the conclusions, we have 6 main aspects, but first let's recap our general objective. That is, what does the Sigla Carnival reveal about EFL learners, intercultural communicative competencies in development in a non-formal educational setting? So according to that, we can say that first, Carnival as an intercultural pedagogical tool is effective. So we can see that Carnival effectively develops CICC with learners. It is important to say that the non-formal educational setting contributed to that development. Also, the development of CICC. We could see that arts can serve as a mediation with culture and language and the learning of language through the creation of penachos, masks, costumes, and every artistic product that they did. They could develop their CICC with the interaction between them and everything. Then art as a means of expression and learning. Also through those artistic products, they could express themselves, things they couldn't say out loud with their words. They could express it through symbols or through colors in their artistic products. And they effectively appropriate the English learning process.
For the next part of the conclusions, we have the community building and emotional bonding because at the beginning of the process, most of the girls were like, hey, no, I don't want to work with you because you are not part of my friends, or maybe because you are not from my school. Then they decide like to connect with each other and also start to relate or to build a community into the lessons. So in this case, they were not, okay, you are not part of my group or you are not part of my school, but now you are my friend. So we are going to work together. And also the emotions became like the engine for this process and the social transformation. The other one is the English as a bridge, not a barrier. So in this case, because as Gina said at the beginning, the girls were like, teacher, please, I don't want to use English. And we were like, no, the idea is that we are going to start using, practice them, connect with the English, how we can use it. And the students, the girls, excuse me, start to say, okay, I don't know English, but I want to know how do you say this expression? How do you say this word? Teacher, could you tell me? And they start to practice them. And they recognize that were also important in this space. Also, the social transformation from childhood. So in this case, the project showed how the girls explore like their identity and others, depending on what they thought about that. So in most of the cases, they were critical, empathetic, and they have a fair view of their environment. Here it's important to highlight that most of the spaces were a safe spaces, or we tried that. Tracking this is because in most of the lessons of the spaces that we have with the girls, the main idea was to provide them that they could practice, say it, and represent the things without be judged about what they are talking about or what they are drawing, making, and those kind of things. So for that reason, the safe space was really important and is also something that we want to highlight. A safe space helps to develop a good learning process in English and other kind of things.
Now in this part, we have our action plan. So we have like an example in this part is one of the sessions that we made that we implement with girls. So we divide the table in some specific charts. The first one is the session that is in there. You can observe the date in which we implemented with girls. Then we have the time. All the sessions were from 1 hour. Then we have the descriptions. In that part, we add the information uh, according to the session that we were implementing. In the next part, we have the competences based on Plan Curricular Instituto Cervantes. So, as we mentioned before, we choose for a specific competencies. However, not all of them are involved in one session. So just one competence was involved for each session. So we tried to focus our sessions develop developing uh, some specific competences. So for this reason, for each session, we choose one specific competencies. As you can see in this part, for the first session, we implement the configuración de una identidad cultural plural. Then we have the communicative and cultural objectives. And finally, we have the artistic product and the materials that we were using in that part.
So thank you. Those are our references. We have like a page that we designed for this project, but because the time, I consider that is not possible to present it. But that's it. That was our project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. And if somebody has, or anybody has a question, please. Somebody asks you if you can send the link to the page, perhaps
Yes.
for others, not because the audience would like to explore the page.
Okay, give me
yeah?
a second and we
Okay.
will send you through the chat. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? So if I have a question. Given that this is like it was very interesting and successful, what recommendations would you offer to formal programs? Because yours was not like a situation in you called it informal situation. So which recommendations would you give to formal programs and seeking to implement this proposal of arts-based intercultural learning projects?
Firstly, I would say that having into account the interests of the institution, right?
Okay.
Because if they have a focus, but then you go backwards, I don't know. Yes, and also the integration of a subject into the
Okay.
yeah. It is not only like English or arts. No, could be another one like science, social
Yes.
study. Yeah, exactly. So try to integrate. We did it with CLIL, so you can do it as well. But taking into account the standards or
Yes.
the focuses that the institution has.
Okay. Great. Then now you have shared the page. So thank you very much. That was very, very interesting. And I guess like this is this is the end of this session, the morning session. So now we're going to have a break for lunch, and we'll see you in an hour. So like in like at 2:15, we're going to connect to our next concurrent session, which is going to be held in YouTube, in our YouTube channel. And afterwards, we will continue with the last concurrent session of concurrent sessions. So thank you very much for attending, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you, guys.
Thanks
So
to you.
Thank
enjoy
you.
your lunch. Have
Thank
a
you
rest
so
and
much.
enjoy your lunch. So I'll see you at 2:15. Bye-bye.